Welcome to Research Talk. I hope you all are enjoying our journey together on phenomenology. As you know, we are in the process of understanding the philosophy, the history of phenomenology, and in that effort, we already covered two great phenomenologists. We talked about Husserl, who is the father of phenomenology, and then we talked about his disciple, Martin Heidegger. In our previous video on Martin Heidegger, we talked about how Martin Heidegger gave a turn to phenomenology by focusing more on being part of human experience. So it was more sort of, I would say, ontological turn about on phenomenology, and it was more focused on what it means to be as a human, what it means to be a teacher. So he focused more about the being part of phenomenology and contributed a lot. In today's video, you could see on the top Maurice Merleau-Ponty. He was born in 1908 and died in 1961. Another great philosopher. If you remember, both the philosophers, Husserl and Heidegger, they were German philosophers. By the time they are working in Germany, phenomenology as a philosophy also started developing in France as well. And Maurice Merleau-Ponty is a key contributor, a French philosopher who wrote a very popular, very interesting book. And that book is called Phenomenology of Perception. Very popular book which came in 1945. If you remember, Husserl talked about consciousness. So how we are conscious of things around us. So the consciousness is important aspect of understanding human experience. So that was Husserl. And then Heidegger talked about our being in the world. So focusing on the being, what it is to be, and that aspect of experience. In both Heidegger and Husserl, they talked about consciousness and the relationship of consciousness to the world. When Maurice Merleau-Ponty came in, he said that there is another important component that nobody talked about in the previous phenomenological development, and he said that aspect, he called it our body. And this is the main contribution of this philosopher. So he said that when you experience anything, the experience does not happen here in your mind or in your consciousness. We experience the world through our whole body. So he said we cannot ignore the bodily experiences, the senses that we use to experience the world, and to understand a holistic understanding of human experience, we need to make sure that we focus on embodied experience. As you already know that Husserl was the first one who challenged the idea of mind-body duality. And he said that unlike the Cartesian philosophy where they have a mind-body separation, Husserl argued for mind-body connectedness. And he was like, we are always conscious of things rather than separation of the mind from the body. So that was Husserl. So he is the one who challenged the Cartesian philosophy. Now, Maurice Merleau-Ponty is the main, you could say, like he vehemently opposed and argued against the Cartesian philosophy of mind-body duality. And his key argument is again about every experience is an embodied experience. And Merleau-Ponty was spot on. Remember, he wrote his book in 1945 when it comes to human physiology, human experience, how we process our experience through our body and mind, we didn't know much at that time. Now we know our body is sort of a sense organ. So we imbibe all the environmental information and we process through our body and mind. So there is, mind and body are completely interconnected when it comes to human experience. You may often have heard the phrase where we say, I have a gut feeling. So where is your gut? My gut is here, right? And I have a gut feeling. So it means that I'm feeling through my gut, through my body. And now we know, after a lot of research, that our mind is not only limited in our skull, our mind is all spread through our body. So our neurons, there are neurons in our stomach, there are neurons through our skeletal system, they're spread almost throughout our body. So we think not through our mind, but we think through the combination of mind and body. So he was a genius in that context, because before we have all these medical researches, he argued that when it comes to human experience, we cannot ignore the bodily experience, the senses, the experience that we have through our senses. So when it comes to understanding human experience, Merleau-Ponty talked about a concept he used is pre-reflective perception. What is pre-reflective perception? So as we move in this world through different phenomena, we are constantly experiencing the world through our body, through our mind together. And during this experience, we are not consciously processing it. And that initial experience, Merleau-Ponty called it as pre-reflective perception. Now he used another layer of perception, which is, we can say, reflection or conceptualization. What it means? If you look at any experience that we have in our day-to-day life, there are two parts. One part is when I am in that moment experiencing the phenomenon. And the other part is when I sit down and reflect on that experience. Merleau-Ponty emphasized that pre-reflective perception is a very important component of human experience, and to really understand develop a thorough understanding of any human experience, one should focus on pre-reflective perception, and then you can talk about reflection and conceptualization. So these things comes later. The most important thing he emphasized is pre-reflective perception. Let's take an example. Let's say I am walking in a forest trail. As I'm walking in that forest trail, I'm constantly processing information as part of my experience. So my eyes are constantly looking around and scanning the environment. My ears are listening to the sound. My legs are moving because, let's say, the trail is not very even. So my legs are constantly moving without any premeditation, like I'm just walking. It's like a very automatic process where my legs are experiencing the ground and they are adjusting based on the, how uneven the ground is. So you see, constantly as part of my this walk through the forest, I'm constantly having these perceptions through my sense organs, and they are pre-reflection. So I'm not thinking, oh, my legs are going down, or like I need to be more careful. No, I'm just walking, and automatically my body is sensing the ground and adjusting my walk, adjusting the balance of my body. My ears are listening to the sound of the birds. I can smell the trees. I can smell the flowers, the grass. So you see, in this, my walk in this forest consists of all these pre-reflective perceptions that are constantly being processed moment to moment. And that is what Merleau-Ponty said, pre-reflective perception. And obviously, when I have done my walk, I'm sitting, let's say, in my campsite and just thinking, or maybe after I'm done with my walk, I'm in my office sitting and just reflecting. So that's part of reflection and conceptualization. So Merleau-Ponty's main idea was the pre-reflective perception is important to understand human experience. So he emphasized the primacy of our senses and also how it enhances our understanding of our experience. So what it means for a researcher in terms of who is conducting a phenomenological research, what it means. Let's say if I'm doing a study on lived experiences of people who are doing camping. So if I'm interested in understanding the lived experiences of going on camping, now when I'm interviewing and collecting data, I'm not going to focus, I will be focusing on how the research participants are processing, reflecting on those experiences, how they are conceptualizing those experiences. At the same time, I'm also very, very focused on the pre-reflective perception, meaning how they describe those experiences, how they feel those experiences, what are the bodily experience of being at a camping site, how do you feel overall through your body, how are you feeling that phenomenon I'm investigating through my body. So as a phenomenologist, as a phenomenological researcher, I'm going to focus on bodily experiences, or I would say embodied experiences of the research participant. And that, I think, is the key contribution of Merleau-Ponty in understanding, in developing phenomenology, which encompasses not only how we process and conceptualize things, but how we experience through our body and mind together. So that's briefly about Merleau-Ponty and his contribution to the field of phenomenology. In our next video, I'm going to talk about another important philosopher who contributed a lot to our understanding of phenomenology, and he is another French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre. Till then, have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you again in another video. Thank you.